Hello and welcome to the all new, all different #1 comics podcast issue. I was like, what volume is this? Volume 1, issue 97.
I was wondering for a minute there how hard a time you were trying to say issue instead of episode.
Man, it's so hard every single time. I can't wrap my brain around it. My brain?
Yeah, I know. And I mean, we'll be restarting a new volume soon. So it'll be even harder.
Soon. I know, right? Only 3 more to go after this one, Bob. That's crazy.
I know. Wow.
Well, we are your one-stop shop for all comic book news and as well as, I don't know what I was going for there, but I figured I'd try something a little weird.
I mean, that was one way to put it.
Right? Yeah. We talk about comic book news here, Bob. We also take a brand new first issue comic book. We break down the story and art, the beats, the character designs, all that fun stuff. And we let you know if we think that you should move on to issue number 2 or not. Like I said, we also talk comic book news. We also talk what's in shops this and next week. Bob, this week we're going to be covering a brand new #1.
From Image Comics, part of the Ghost Machine universe, the Rocketfellers.
That's right, and as they allude to in the book, that's not the Rockefellers, that's the Rocketfellers.
Yes.
Now, why the hell they chose this name for the family, for the book, for all that stuff is completely beyond me. I'm not sure what the what's going on there. I don't know if it's just for the fun or what.
I was going to say, I'm sure it's not a coincidence. I'm sure they did that on purpose.
Yeah, maybe there will be some really interesting reason later on in the series. We definitely don't get that interesting of a reason here. I'll give it that.
That is true.
With that being said, Bob, let's take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment to talk some comic book news. Hey, and we're back with issue number 97 of the all new, all different #1 comics podcast. That's right, the podcast where that's Bob, I'm Dan. I forgot to introduce us, but that's okay because I'm doing it now. Say hello, Bob.
Hello, Bob.
There we go.
A little out of order, but
yeah, just a little
bit.
You said it, so that's what's important. Bob, we are gonna talk about this new #1 comic, but before we do that, we're gonna talk some comic book and related news. It's News Light Week. That happens from time to time, but I have a little bit of news to get us through still.
James Gunn?
No James Gunn this time. Sorry, Bob. But
man,
I can say that Marvel Comics, in association with Penguin, is shipping a 1 per store promo to comic book shops. And as you know, they do this sometimes. Sometimes there's like an issue coming out. They did it with Kid Venom. They did it with, I think, a Spider-Gwen book. They've done it with like a few things, these secret kind of 1 per store variants that come out. And this upcoming Wednesday, in your local shops, there will be a copy of West Coast Avengers #1, a secret 1 per store promo with a new character, Blue Bolt, on the cover. And Bob, if you want to guess, where Blue Bolt comes from, feel free. But I think you know. I put in the little Jeopardy timer music here if I could, but I think we'd get in some kind of trouble. But Blue Bolt, Bob, is in some relation to Black Bolt.
Okay.
Don't know if it's supposed to be Black Bolt's kid or a nephew or something like that. But yeah, we're getting a new character, Blue Bolt, on the cover there. I'm going to say this. I think that Blue Bolt probably doesn't hit super hard. Probably not going to be that big of a deal. But with comic book flippers and speculators and all of that, and these being 1 per store variants, I think that this will probably heat up week of and then cool down, quite significantly a few weeks after. So, if you're into collecting these types of things that are probably pretty rare, there's not going to be a whole lot of them out there. See if you can secure a copy early or get it for cover price or whatever. But I don't know. I don't see much of a long-term hold with this. I don't see like a Spider-Boy type of deal or anything, but who knows?
No, but I mean, a lot of that stuff has been happening lately.
Yes, definitely a lot of it. You're not wrong there. And, even we have like the new champions and stuff like that. We also have like I mentioned, Spider Boy. We've got Spider Girl in that universe. We've got things like Ultimate Black Cat over in the Ultimate Comics and stuff. These characters that, I mean, probably won't be that big of a deal 10 years from now or whatever, if they even come back up. But still, they've been kind of exploding recently. So,
yeah. Which, speaking of champions, have you heard that apparently the title of Young Avengers, or at least right now, have been changed to champions?
I have not heard that. Huh.
Yeah, I just read that this morning, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, champions #1 could be seeing a little bit of uptick.
Yeah, it could be a bump in that. That's really interesting. I wonder why changing their name or team or whatever, the name of the team. Yeah, there's got to be some kind of reason behind it. Bob, I know you're a big fan of Idris Elba, and he is reportedly in talks to play Man-at-Arms in the He-Man Masters of the Universe movie.
I did see this.
Yeah, I want your thoughts on this because I feel like you have thoughts.
Well, first of all, I'm hoping it's not another Heimdall where he's, vastly underutilized.
Yeah, very true.
Which, I mean, I just don't see how, considering, Man-at-Arms is pretty much the #2. You have King Randor, and then you have #3, you have King Randor, you have He-Man, and then you basically have Man-at-Arms.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and I think, Idris Elba is pretty good. Either Idris or Idris, I never know exactly how to pronounce his name. But
well, you certainly know that I don't.
But, he's pretty good in pretty much everything he does. So,
yeah,
I think he would do a really good job at this.
I love Man-at-Arms because he's such a weird character. Like, most of the Masters of the Universe characters are pretty weird, but he's just so goofy looking in some of those older toys and then in the cartoon series and everything. Just what a weird looking guy. I'd love to see somebody like Idris Elba have to put on that suit and everything.
That is one thing I'm hoping the Masters of the Universe live action does. I hope it leans into it. I hope.
Yeah, dude, they better put that helmet and make him have the mustache and everything.
Yeah, I kind of hope they do like the MCU and just lean into it. Of course. Yeah, of course, make updates here and there, but as far as costumes go, just lean into it. It may come off as goofy and campy, but hey, at least you went for it.
Yeah, dude, it has to be goofy and campy. Yeah. You know what I'm just realizing too, because I'm just kind of looking him up, like while we're talking about him, just because he occupies a space in my mind, but I still wanted to look at the character while I was talking about him. That original figure didn't have a mustache. That was brought in for the cartoon. Did you know that? I had no clue.
I'm sorry. I'm having to dig in the deep recesses of my mind.
Right? Yeah. Oh man.
I believe you. Yeah, I believe you're correct. I don't. Yeah. Now that I think about it, yeah, I don't think he started out with a mustache.
So weird. Yeah, I love the mustache. So that kind of makes him, the mustache and the helmet obviously are super important parts of that.
Well, it just screams grizzled veteran when you see the mustache.
Right? Yeah, they wanted like that fatherly figure, that 80s dad.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
So cool. Bob, how about CM Punk? I know you're a wrestling guy. I don't know how much you know about CM Punk. I only know like a little bit about him because obviously not obviously, but I think like he has some ties to like the punk rock scene.
Do you want the good or the bad?
I don't know because there is some news on him. So yeah, give me both, I guess.
Okay.
Give me the good and the bad.
Okay. The good is that he's one of the best wrestlers on the scene. I mean, he lives what he talks about. He's straight edge. He doesn't,
Okay.
as far as I know, he doesn't drink, all that kind of stuff. The bad is he can be, which it's this way for a lot of pro wrestlers. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. From what I've heard, he can be kind of a moody prick.
Okay.
But again, it's the nature of the beast because if you want to be on top, if you want to be number one, then I mean you have to be better than everybody else, and if stuff, if creatively, if people have for you what you don't think jives with your character, or which goes against what you stand for and all that, then yeah, you're going to be kind of a moody prick. So
yeah, and I think that the like you said, kind of the nature of the beast there. Wrestling, especially professional wrestling, where you have to come up with this persona and everything too, and like you kind of have to be the best or whatever. Like that's like what you're portraying. Yeah, you kind of have to be a dick. Like you're not really going to portray yourself as like the nice guy next door or something, but you're going to kick everybody's ass. Like it's not. It kind of goes hand in hand with it. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Maybe a little more so than some of the others. I'm just looking at some stuff on him here, and man, it looks like he cited my favorite wrestler as his influence for becoming a wrestler. So that's really cool. I like that. Who is Roddy Piper? So I love Roddy Piper. That guy's my favorite.
I may have heard that before, but considering the type of character he portrays, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah, man. I could go on and on about Roddy Piper for a long time, but I'll spare us that conversation. Man, what a cool guy. That sucks when Roddy Piper died. Like that sucked. Yeah. That was a huge loss. Yeah. He was such an interesting wrestler, and I really liked his acting chops. I thought he was really, really interesting. Yeah, just a really interesting guy. They Live is one of my favorite movies of all time.
The movie They Live, I mean, it's hands down the best performance by a wrestler turned actor.
Right? It's so unique and so cool, and just God, man.
And I mean, it hands down has one of the best fight scenes of all time.
Yeah, you can't top that. And his one-liners and stuff, God, man, that is such a cool movie. I'm probably going to watch that after we record tonight.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, Roddy Piper actually had a big hand in choreographing that fight.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure of it. I am sure. That is just such a wonderful fight scene. I mean, if you want to see the most classic fight scene of all time, watch They Live. It's just such a good movie, man. It's got everything. It's got sci-fi horror elements. It's got that great long fight scene. It's got the great one-liner. I mean, that is like the epitome of a wonderful movie. I love.
I mean, you know a fight scene or any kind of scene is good. It's in the pop culture zeitgeist when South Park copies it.
Right? Yeah. God, man, such a good movie. Why don't we have a They Live comic? Why can't somebody write that? Damn it, Peter J. Tomasi, write a They Live comic, please. Please, sir. We'll move on. Again, like I could talk Roddy Piper for a long time, but we'll move over somewhere else.
Are you talking to a lifelong wrestling fan? So
right.
That'd be easy for me to do.
Yeah, no problem for me either. I just don't know how much our listeners want to hear about that, but so we'll move on. Bob, Daniel Craig, Sergeant Rock.
I saw this piece of news. I saw this piece of I don't know what your opinion is. My opinion right now is kind of lukewarm, just for the simple fact of I really don't know anything about Sergeant Rock.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I can't say one way or the other whether, Daniel Craig embodies or would do a good job as Sergeant Rock. I can't say one way or the other. So, I'll just say good for him.
I'm gonna say this, and maybe this is a hot take. I like Daniel Craig. I think he's a really good actor.
Mm-hmm.
He's interesting. He brings a lot to the table, but it's almost like what he did with James Bond. He just doesn't. He just doesn't feel like a James Bond. Like there's nothing wrong with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not a James Bond. Like he just doesn't have that James Bond in him. I didn't see it. I didn't feel it.
I mean, the little bit of Daniel Craig James Bond I've seen,
mm-hmm.
he kind of seems more of a, and I know he was definitely, I know this character has a little bit of James Bond in him. He was inspired by James Bond, but he just seems more of like a Jack Bauer type than a James Bond type. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does, and I agree with you because it's like he's right there. Like, there's nothing wrong with him. Like, I'm not trying to say like he sucks as a James Bond or something.
Do you think it's how his James Bond was portrayed as opposed to the other James Bond?
Yeah, it could possibly be that because I also feel the same way about Pierce Brosnan. Like, he's not bad. He's good. Like, he's a fine actor and all of that. And like, I don't feel like there's any problems with him per se, but he didn't feel like a James Bond to me. Like he didn't come across as a James Bond.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I can't. I don't know if you've ever said what your opinion is, but to me, Connery hands down best James Bond of all time.
Yeah, I don't think very many people could argue that. But there have been some great James Bonds.
Oh yeah, there definitely has, and I mean, there's been some underrated James Bond. I mean, Roger Moore was an underrated James Bond.
Yeah, Roger Moore. I actually really, 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 really liked George Lazenby. Like
George Lazenby.
Lazenby, yeah. Sorry, man, I thought he was really good. But we have him for one movie.
Yeah, but I mean.
He was good.
Connery, he just played that spy. He played the ladies' man. He had, the serious acting chops, but I mean, he could also, do the lighthearted, comedy when, the scene called for it.
Yeah, completely. And I mean, that right there, it's like you've got, in my opinion, like there's like 3 iconic James Bonds. And then, Timothy Dalton did a really good job. And I feel like Pierce Brosnan did a good job. Like, again, it wasn't him. Maybe it's the writing or something. And then Daniel Craig, man, like he's just too far off. And it's not him. I mean, I don't feel like it's his fault, but.
Well, I mean, it's just a sign of the times because you look where James Bond started from, and once you got to Daniel Craig, I mean, Daniel Craig was more of like a he was almost like that, super serious super spy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were. There were lighthearted moments mixed in here and there, but I mean, for the most part, it was like super serious, super spy.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just sign of the times.
Well, I think this too. I think that maybe James Bond would be better portrayed as something like what they're doing with the Fantastic Four movie, making it like a period piece. Go back to the time of James Bond, and it works way better. Like, why why present day and all of that. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, we're talking about Sergeant Rock here, but Bob, did you know that in the in the late 80s, early 90s, they were going to do a Sergeant Rock movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger in the lead? And dude, this thing is like,
it was Arnold.
Yeah, man, but this thing is like all but filmed. I mean, everything. It was going to be produced by Joel Silver, and it had screenplays by David Peoples, John. I don't know. Anyways, like 4 different people. It's got like the whole plot on here, dude. All kind of stuff.
Have a director.
Yes, Francis Lawrence.
Does it say what happened?
Well, that doesn't even make sense because Francis Lawrence would have been too young at the time, right? Okay, sorry. Yes, it does. It just didn't. It didn't take off or something. Something didn't happen until. Here's what happened. Sorry, I'm like absorbing the information and trying to figure out a way to tell it. So this is the same movie.
Right.
So in the late 80s and early 90s, Arnold Schwarzenegger was attached to play Sergeant Rock in a film produced by Joel Silver. And there was 2 screenplays, and then in 93 another screenplay was written, and then in 96 another screenplay was written, and then it was not shelved, but it was decided that Schwarzenegger was no longer going to star in it. And in 2007, they finished another screenplay that everyone was really happy with, and they were just trying to cast it. And they were considering Bruce Willis as Sergeant Rock with Guy Ritchie to direct.
Wow.
Then in 2008, Ritchie said that the film was shelved. And in 2010, it said it would be set in the near future with Francis Lawrence being the director. And there had been no development until September 3rd, 2024.
Wow.
And that's where we are current day with, November 19th with them. Holy crap, dude. Like, is this actually going to happen is the real question. Now.
So literally, this film is almost as old as we are.
Yeah. This has been out there for a long time, trying to happen.
A film 40 plus years in the making.
It's super weird, dude, because I don't understand. I don't know enough about Sergeant Rock, but he's basically a G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
I think he was a G.I. Joe figure. Or at least, I'm not saying he was on the team, but they did make a G.I. Joe figure. Like, for sure. I know they did.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you got to remember that the G.I. Joe that I grew up on was the second iteration of the G.I. Joe toy.
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, you had those, you had G.I. Joe that started out as like those really large, like doll size, figures that didn't really move or anything like that. They went away for a little bit and then they got revived.
Now, here's what I think about Sergeant Rock, and this is going to sound really ignorant because this is based on nothing. This is just what I think the character is because I don't know. I'm not spitting facts here, so obviously, feel free to fact check me or whatever. But I believe that Sergeant Rock was a World War II soldier and was like a very stereotypical one. And I believe that in all of the publication and everything of Sergeant Rock, that's who the character was. And then they continued to have the character in DC continuity, like here and there, like sprinkled in. And then he became like a weird, like time traveler guy who was basically like a World War II soldier who ended up in like Flashpoint and Swamp Thing and stuff like that.
I think you might. Well, I think you're definitely right on his origins, which would make sense considering he appeared in his first appearance was our Army at War number 83 back in 1959. So I know I'm God, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was before the Vietnam War. So I believe that was that was at the tail end of World War II.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too, because you have to think that they had to do something with the character to make him stand out now, or not, maybe not stand out, but be a character now or whatever. There has to be some reason for that, because a stereotypical sergeant, army sergeant or whatever from World War II, like what place are they going to have alongside Constantine and Swamp Thing and Batman and stuff like that? Like how does that happen? So there has to be some more like supernatural element to that. Otherwise, it's yeah, I'm just not, I'm not too sure. I don't know. That's something I guess, that it wouldn't be bad to take a deep dive into, like learn a little bit more about the character. Maybe I'll do something, skim a Wikipedia page or something. But yeah, very, very interesting that this has been a project in the works since like the late 80s. That is crazy, man. Like that's kind of blowing my mind, to tell you the truth.
I know. And I mean, Sergeant Rock, I mean, I'm not saying that, Sergeant Rock wasn't popular at the time or anything like that, but I mean, it's not like it's, some big, huge property like Star Wars or, anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's so weird.
I'm just, wondering what ultimately led to it just getting delayed for that many decades.
Yeah, such a long time to get delayed.
Definitely.
One of the most interesting parts about that to me is, again, we are in James Gunn's DC movie universe. And James Gunn was very adamant whenever he and I can't remember his partner's name now, but whenever they took over this and started having all these plans and everything, and they were saying that, and I know you remember this news, Bob, because we talked about it quite a bit, but everything was going to be all tied in together. The comic books, the movies, the cartoons, the TV shows, every single iteration of anything DC related would all tie in together. And that's certainly not been the case at all.
No.
Yeah, they had to walk that back the second they started. And I think that, James Gunn being James Gunn, he had the initial success of Guardians of the Galaxy. And I'm going to go with a hot take here. I love what James Gunn did with Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that he really did a lot of good work on all three of those movies and the characters, and whenever they appeared in the extended Marvel universe, other places and everything. I really liked his work a lot. I think he did a really wonderful job. But I think it was based on the success of the MCU at the time. And I think that, even though, a lot of people outside of comics are thinking of the Guardians of the Galaxy as this ragtag, super obscure group of characters that no one's ever heard of, and that James Gunn single-handedly picked them and brought them to the world and did all this stuff with them. I just disagree. I think it was the point of where Marvel was at the time. And I'm not saying that he didn't contribute to their success, but I don't think that he is the only one that could have made Guardians of the Galaxy successful, is what I'm going to say. So I think that DC has put way too much stock into him and his ideas. And I think by doing things like Creature Commandos and then, possibly this Sergeant Rock thing and what he did with Suicide Squad and everything, like I'm just not seeing a lot of forward thinking and a lot of like movement in this. Like it seems like it's going to fail before it even starts.
See, and I mean, now, especially with Creature Commandos, him greenlighting Creature Commandos, pretty much coming off of him making Suicide Squad, I I don't want him to get pigeonholed to where it seems like that all he does.
Mm-hmm.
Take obscure groups and more obscure characters and just puts his own spin on it, because every time he does that, like, every time anybody follows anything like that, I mean, it's all going to be compared to Guardians.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
And I mean, Guardians, I just think was lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was the right place, right time. I don't.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't think its success hinged on him at all. I mean, look at that cast. Like if we had, if we didn't have Chris Pratt in the role of Star-Lord, would it have been as successful? I'm not too sure. But if it had a different writer or director than James Gunn, like I don't think that makes much of a difference.
Think if we had Jason Momoa instead of Dave Bautista.
Yeah. Very true.
I mean, when when I first heard about, it was pretty much coming down to those two. I mean, my whole thing was, if he's the tough Drax and doesn't talk that much, then Dave Bautista. If he has a lot of dialogue, Jason Momoa. But I mean, Bautista had to play the tough guy, but he also had to act. And I thought he did a damn good job in the role.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I cannot. He's synonymous with that. I can't imagine anybody else doing that.
He is. I mean, just like Robert Downey Jr. is synonymous with Iron Man. I couldn't imagine anybody else playing Drax except Dave Bautista.
See, and think about that for a second. You have to think of the casting of things and how important that is. And I'm not saying that James Gunn didn't have a huge role in that, because maybe he did, but it's you have these people who are synonymous with the roles that they're playing, and as far as James Gunn's work so far, on Suicide Squad and anything else that he's done outside of the MCU, I just don't see that. Like there's not any characters in Suicide Squad that I felt like, oh my God, no one else could have played this role. This voice is perfect or anything like that. Like I didn't see that there. I'm not seeing that kind of thing in James Gunn's other work. I don't know, man. I think that the MCU just had a lot to do with the success of Guardians of the Galaxy and not solely James Gunn is all I'm going to say. So I don't know.
I just haven't liked what James Gunn has done so far, because how long has he been co-head at DC?
I mean, I don't know. A year, maybe a little less, 9 months, something like that.
I thought it's been more than that, actually.
Really?
Yeah, and I mean, he's announced all these projects.
Yeah.
I mean, we finally have gotten, trailers for Creature Commandos. We're finally going forward with Superman and all that, but it's kind of like, why don't you bring something out before you start announcing, all these other projects that you're going to do down the line? Because if one of those projects is not successful, or if like Superman, if it bombs, I mean, do you think he's going to be head of DC for that long if his projects start bombing?
I don't think so. The only thing I wonder is how much of a upper hand he had whenever he signed that deal. Maybe there's some kind of clause in there, like he has X amount of time or whatever. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I agree. I mean, you go in and start bombing, or Superman does. Yeah, I mean, think about that for 1 second. If Superman comes out and Superman sucks, if it tanks, where does that put James Gunn? What position is he in at that point? Because I guess
Superman's pretty much tied with Batman for your flagship.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if Superman bombs, then if you mess Superman up, then how long do you think before the Warner Brothers higher ups lose faith in you?
Yeah. Yeah, very quickly, I would imagine.
Yep.
I don't know. We could talk about that all day too. I'll get through this next couple of points really quickly. Next year, we're getting a Predator Spider-Man series, miniseries. They had some success with the Predator Black Panther, so now they're going Predator Spider-Man. We'll see how that goes. I can't imagine how that interaction will be, but yeah.
I can't imagine it being. I mean, I would definitely see Black Panther, Predator being superior, no pun intended, to Predator Spider-Man.
Predator superior Spider-Man, I got you. But my last little bit of news, Bob, is not really comic book related. Maybe more science related. Not even science fiction. Sorry, but I had to get it out there because this is such interesting news to me. Have you been following our second moon, our temporary second moon?
I have not.
No. Do you know that it exists?
I did not.
Wow, Bob, that blows my mind. Yeah, so I think since late September, I believe, we got this little tiny second moon. This thing's like a baby.
Are we becoming Tatooine?
I hope so. Well, maybe not, but we've got this second moon, and it's been absorbed into the moon's gravity and all of that, and it's got like this really weird orbit and everything. It's been super cool. It's just been hanging out with our moon. It's a little fun second moon, and
interesting.
Yeah, it's been there for about 2 months, and now tomorrow it's going away. So it was just temporary. It's actually being pulled away by the sun's gravity starting tomorrow on Monday.
Oh.
But it should come back around in January for like a quick visit again before it takes off. But yeah, man, I thought that was so cool. I don't know enough about astronomy and stuff to know if we've ever had a second moon before.
Just ask the dinosaurs if we've ever had a second moon.
Right? Yeah, kind of.
Oh wait, no, you can't.
Yeah, but I thought this was fun, and just something I wanted to talk about for a sec. So, anyways, I thought that was cool. Yeah, right.
Very cool.
Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about some new comics that are in shops this week. Hey, Bob, it's us. We're the all-new, all-different #1 comics podcast, and we are back. We're here to talk. Yeah, right. We're here to talk about some new comics that are in shops this week. It's pretty late in the week, so I don't know if you can still find these books, but you can always try. Everything's worth an old school try.
Yeah.
Bob, from Marvel Comics, we got Avengers Assemble, issue number 3. First team appearance of the Night Stalkers, Voracious, Coma, Abby Morris, Frank Drake, and Bloodscream. It's also got a first appearance of Tatiana Noah. I don't know what the hell I just said, but
Yeah, I'm sorry, but Abby Morris still sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, I just imagine you're like in line, like in like second grade to like go to recess or something. You have to like line up alphabetically, and they're like, Bloodscream, you go in front of Abby Morris because your name starts with a B. And then you, Coma, Voracious, you're supposed to be at the back. Like, yeah, it sounds super interesting. From Dark Horse, we got Barstow, number 1. Something dark lurks beneath an oddball town where a special agent tries to find a missing colleague whom she never met, yet her name was the only clue he left behind. Craziness. For Marvel Comics, we got What If Minnie Became Captain Marvel? Bob, what if Minnie became Captain Marvel? That would be a really weird universe, and I don't like it.
Already tired of these Disney what ifs.
Yeah, dude, I'm really tired of them, not going to lie. From Dark Horse Comics, a book that I would never be able to pronounce if my life depended on it. Dude. Sure. This one's about a nameless woman who will fight not only to secure a place among those people on the title, the greatest warriors in all of somewhere, to protect the queen, The empire and the freedom of those will live there. I don't know what that means.
Be glad she's nameless so you don't have to pronounce her name again.
Yeah, man, I have no clue what I just read. From Keen Spot, we got Mark Spears' Monsters issue number 2. Of course, the first issue heated up quite a bit. The second issue also seeing a little bit of that heat. If you can find either the first or the second printing of issue number 1 or the second issue in your local shop, definitely pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
From DC Comics, we got Milestone Universe, The Shadow Cabinet number 1, the first appearance of Angela Alva, the head of System. I don't know what System is. You read to find out. From Dark Horse, we got You Never Heard of Me number 1, where a teenager struggles with the burden of having the ability to touch someone and see both their past, present, and worst moment. Sorry, to see the best and worst moment of their life, past, present, or future. Kind of an ability and a curse there, I guess.
Yeah.
From Marvel Comics, we got Bob's favorite title, Phases of the Moon Knight, issue number 4.
Yes.
From DC Comics, Question, All Along the Watchtower, number 1. The premiere issue with Renee Montaigne as the Question, investigating a murder at the headquarters of the Justice League Unlimited. Why would you murder someone at the headquarters of the Justice League Unlimited? That just sounds like a stupid idea.
I was just about to say, isn't that asking for a lot
right?
of heartache and pain?
Yeah, I think so. Doesn't sound like a great idea.
Attacking basically the hangout of just the most powerful beings in the world and the universe, mind you.
Yeah, not a great idea, but I guess
it's not.
You villain over at the at the headquarters there. From Marvel Comics, Scarlet Witch issue number 4. It's got a first appearance in it. I'm not going to try to say the character's name, but you can. From IDW, we got Sonic the Hedgehog Knuckles 30th Anniversary Special number 1. Original story celebrating the 30th anniversary of Knuckles. Bob from Mad Cave, Spectrum issue number 1. Another person struggling with something happens. I don't know. Bob, I know you picked up your Star Wars Battle of Jakku Republic Under Siege number 1. It's got the origin of Luke Skywalker's new Jedi Order.
Yeah, the four issue Insurgency, which was the first part, was really good. So yeah, I'm definitely continuing on this to see where it goes, and I definitely want to learn more about the Battle of Jakku.
Yeah, would you say that the Force is strong with that one, or?
No, it's got Luke Skywalker. Of course it is. Well, and Princess Leia, so of course it is.
We also got Storm issue number 2, the debut of Storm's new suit. See what new garment Storm is wearing in that action-packed issue, I'm sure.
Hopefully the Mohawk comes back.
Do you like the Mohawk? I'm not sure how I feel about the Mohawk.
I like the Mohawk.
Bob, I think you should rock a Mohawk. From IDW, we got the latest Turtles crossover, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Noratu. Naruto. Wow, we sound out of touch. Noratu. God. I give up. You guys know what we're saying. Mm-hmm. Naruto, I think is how you pronounce it. Naruto. Yes. Jeez, man. Wow, we're out of touch. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all of our listeners who like Naruto. All of
our listeners half our age.
Yeah, definitely. Bob, from Marvel Comics, we got Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 11. Hey, we talked about Ultimate Black Cat earlier. She's in there. And we also got Wolverine issue number 3. Those are some of the new books that came out this week. I'm sure there's more, but those are all the ones we're going to talk about before we take our very, very quick break to break and then come back and talk all about Rocketfellers. Hey, and welcome back to the all-new, all-different number 1 comics podcast. Here to talk to you all about the Rocketfellers number 1. This is an Image comic in association with Ghost Machine, written by Peter J. Tomasi. and Francis Menopole. Bob, I'm going to read the solicit really quick from Image Comics. A new cosmic time travel adventure from the minds of Peter J. Tomasi and Francis Menopole. In the picture-perfect 25th century, the Rockefeller family, living a disconnected and emotionally distant existence, discover a terrible secret. In their hands is the fate of humanity. Hunted down, the Rocketfellers enlist in the Time Zone Protection Program and escape to present-day Earth. If they can't find a way to trust each other in this strange ancient world of today, they and our future will perish. That's the solicit there from Image Comics. Of course, this book is written by Peter J. Tomasi. I think that Francis Manipul is also credited with some of the story, but for the sake of making this easier to talk about, we're going to say Peter J. Tomasi wrote and Francis Manipul illustrated. So, Peter J. Tomasi, big run on JSA, Hitman, Batman and Robin, Detective Comics, Superman, Green Lantern Corps, Batman Arkham Knight, Starman, Lobo, Martian Manhunter, Aquaman, The Spectre, Brightest Day, Green Lantern, Nightwing, JLA, Hawkman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman proper, every DC book you've ever heard of in your life. That's what Peter J. Tomasi has done.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. But he's done some indie stuff too. Peter J. Tomasi, really, really good writer who's been around for a bit. We also have Francis Manipul, is a Canadian-Filipino comic artist who's worked a lot on Flash and Justice League. Also some work on Detective Comics, Witchblade, Adventure Comics, Legion of Superheroes, Batgirl, Batman Beyond, Action. Again, we're getting a whole bunch of DC stuff. But he also worked on Clear. If you guys remember that comic from Dark Horse from last year, Clear with Scott Snyder. So that's the creators. You got your synopsis, you got your creators. Let me go into my synopsis really quick. The Rocketfellers opens with a futuristic family of a mom, dad, 2 kids, and 2 grandparents. We see the family get into a time pod for a quote-unquote short vacation. It's the 25th century, a.k.a. 400 years from now. Their airship is shot by a missile. They run for the pod, and they're being chased by a Codex on a hover bike. The grandmother is on a frozen lake, and underneath her it's cracking. She sacrifices herself so the rest of the family can get away. Codex then chases the others as the family jumps on into the pod to teleport to 2024. The family hosts a Thanksgiving dinner with their new neighbors, and their son Richie uses some future tech to conjure a tsunami in the swimming pool with some new friends. Later, the family is shown using a bunch of future tech in their home. The dad, Roland, talks to his brother in the 25th century and is told they can't come back for the unforeseeable future. In the end, we see Roland with an eye growing or being held in a glass. And that ends our book. That's the cliffhanger there. Bob, we got a lot to talk about here, so let's get into it.
Well, before we go any further, that may be the shortest synopsis you've ever written.
Yeah, man, it just went, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, I figured, let me recap this book in a different way. Let's get it out there. Yeah. How about these beats, Bob? Give me your thoughts on these beats.
I'm gonna say the beats were actually smooth to follow for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it showed them going into the enlisting in the program and taking the short vacation. Their ship getting shot down. I guess not where they wanted it to be, and them running away from Codex, who was doing the shooting, and getting into the pod, and then it shows them trying to adapt to present life, and the only thing that was weird for me, and the only thing that messed me up as far as beats, was the whole eyeball thing at the end.
Yeah, that was very strange.
That was kind of like, if that was an end, that was a very vague end, because that wasn't even mentioned anywhere in the comic.
Well, it was mentioned actually in a couple, I would say, just a few panels before, where Roland's talking to his brother, and it's the oddest sentence I've ever read, because again, I didn't know anything until I got to the end, but he said something about, we have eyeballs and eyeballs are bad. That was a line in the comic. Actually, I want to find it really quick so I can present it to you, Bob. But it was very interesting. I was reading it and I was like, what the hell does that mean? Of course, then just a couple of panels later, it came back around. But yeah, as Roland's sitting there, I don't know if you remember the panel where he's playing with his dog and talking to his brother, and then a couple of panels later, it says something. It says no big hiccups that turn heads, no timeline spikes otherwise. And then and that's his brother. Sorry, I can't remember his brother's name here, but that's his brother talking to him. And then Roland interjects and says, "We get eyeballs, and eyeballs are bad." And then his brother says, "Yeah, see, now we're on the same page." And that's the end of the panel. And then it doesn't say anything about it until the end of the next page, where Roland and I believe his wife's name is Rachel, where they look into the little thing with the eye. But yeah, I didn't even realize it was an eye at first. I thought, what the hell is this thing? And then I was like, okay, there's eyelashes, so it's an eye.
No, yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't exactly know what it was at first, but then I saw the eyelashes, and I'm like, oh, that's an eyeball.
Bob, I'm not going to lie, and obviously we won't get into it here on air, but I was a little scared as to what it was first. I was like, huh? And then I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
We'll keep quiet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. This flowed in a really cool way. I like how usually, I feel like usually when you introduce time travel, you kind of have to like display the time travel a little bit before you can get into like a story,
Yeah.
Like you have like the Sound of Thunder type of thing, or you have, you have to demonstrate that time travel is a thing other than just traveling one singular time. The Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where you go back in time to all these different points and whatever. But they didn't do that. This was based on one singular event. And then they kind of got like stuck somewhere. So that was really interesting. But the framing worked, and I like the beats. I think they worked well. Let's move over to dialogue, and I'll lead this one with saying, damn it, Peter J. Tomasi. I like this book, and I like where everything is going. You have way too much dialogue in here. There's way too much talking. I need more time to absorb the art and enjoy the story that way. I felt like the dialogue worked. It's not that there was a problem with the dialogue, but there was obviously way too much of it for my taste. How did you feel about the dialogue?
I mean, as far as all the characters' voices, the dialogue worked for me. I mean, you had like the, little girl, everything she said, even when they were in present day. I mean, innocent child kind of dialogue. I mean, you had the... Oh, I'm sorry. I honestly can't remember names.
They all started with an R. I know that.
Yeah, you had the son who, again, I'm going to present day. I mean, he's shown off. He's not trying to hide it or anything. So, and I mean, you had like the mom and dad who were trying to take charge, and you had the grandfather who's basically, telling the kids to do their thing. And yeah, I mean, the dialogue as far as the characters go, I mean, the dialogue was, what I would expect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, likewise. The narrative of this book, I think I already kind of talked about it a little bit, but the narrative structure here, it definitely worked for me. The whole time traveling plot, really framed what was going on in the book. We get a good narrative storytelling. Peter J. Tomasi knows how to narratively write a story very well. So I mean, I'm not going to sit here and critique him on it. I think that the narrative structure, was really really good. Definitely worked very very well. If you want to add anything to that, please feel free.
So I'm gonna judge this because I'm sure down the line we're gonna get more on this.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a couple of things about the narrative that I just would have liked a little more from, like a little more clarification, just a little more backstory and all that. The grandmother, she just felt like a MacGuffin to me. She felt like a trope to me.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the elder statesman. Know she's in a no-win situation, has to distract the bad guy and sacrifices herself. But it's kind of like there was no backstory, or we didn't get anything else as far as the grandmother in this issue. So it's kind of like, okay, why was her sacrifice that greatly big?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I hear you. I think it's almost like just that implied. Obviously, nobody wants to lose their family member, thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I think that a little bit more backstory on some of these characters and everything would have been welcomed. But I also get how we're just kind of dropped in the world, and the whole series or whatever is probably going to take care of that for us. But you do have to remember, and sometimes it's annoying, sometimes it's not. Obviously, in modern comics, that's how they're written. They, with the exception of something like, I don't know, Where Monsters Lie or something, where it's written very straightforward. We're kind of just dropped into the world, and then the storytelling is how we figure out everything. They build the world around that and everything, and that's how everything's written now. But
yeah, and no, I definitely get that. But I mean, there are just some narratives where a little, I mean, you don't have to go too much.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of backstory, would be good. Like, especially with time travel, just a little bit of backstory and like the characters and time travel itself, or the rules of time travel would be just helpful.
Yeah, sure. I get you. How about the world building? This is probably a big one for this one. I don't know that they got like a whole lot of time to build a world, because this issue just comes at you really fast. There's obviously no room in this book to or in this, individual issue to take a breather or anything like that. Everything just comes at you full force.
Well, I mean, really, the only kind of world building they had was they had that little bit of when they were trying to escape from Codex, which I'm guessing that was, Earth 400 years from now.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Yep.
And, I mean, you just have to, base pretty much all of this book on present day Earth.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, as far as building that world, as far as building the inhabitants and their daily lives and all that, I mean, he nailed present day Earth. I mean, you have the you have the women all talking together. I mean, you have the guys manning the barbecue. You have kids in the pool. Them trying lead normal lives, throwing a barbecue for the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, I think, for the most part, the world in this book is built very well.
Yeah, completely agreed. I think they did a great job with the world building. It just doesn't stop to breathe. But I think that is a result of the fast paced, story that they're telling here. So it definitely works. It's not a critique at all.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into the art. The art by Francis Manipul. How about the character designs, Bob? Give me some of your thoughts on these. Oh, sorry, character design. Sorry for the little sound there. I'm going to open up my book. Maybe I'll start if you want to look a little bit.
Go ahead.
Man, and this is like a weird critique because spoiler alert, I love this art. Francis Manipul is an outstanding artist, really, really good. The only character critiques I'm going to give are I don't like the way that the grandmother looks. She looks very strange to me. Just a design choice there that I'm not a fan of.
Mm-hmm.
I can't quite put my finger on it, but everybody else looks fine, and she just doesn't work for me. Her design looks very odd. Other than that, I mean, these characters look fantastic. I love Codex. I'm not sure what I'm looking at, but I love Codex. It looks so cool.
Codex kind of gives me that, especially in the face, kind of gives me that V for Vendetta Guy Fawkes mask.
Yeah, it kind of does. I'm getting like definitely that look. Yeah, for sure. And I'm getting like a Terminator type of vibe from Codex or something. They're there to stop something from happening or whatever. But yeah, I love the design of Codex, and I like all the character designs here. They're very, very good. Just don't like that grandmother. She's only in the issue for a minute, so I don't have to deal with it long. But I'm not a fan of her design. Everything else I love. How about the backgrounds, Bob? If you guys are just tuning in for the first time or you need a little reminder, Bob is the background snob. It rhymes, and that's why I say it. But every comic book has a very unique set of backgrounds in the panels that either really work with the comic and make the comic come to life and make it flow, or they stop the comic dead in its tracks because they don't work and they're too conflicting with the foreground. So each comic is a unique situation, but Bob is here to let you know if that unique situation works in its favor or in its disadvantage. So what did you think about this one, Bob?
I'm not gonna go through it panel for panel because I think the backgrounds in the panels, especially in the snow, I think that definitely works. I mean, where you see Codex running through the snow, and then you see the snow on the trees, and you see the little twigs and brush on the ground. I do have it open to one panel, and I don't know if you still have your book in front of you. But I have it open to this one panel where the family is basically greeting all their neighbors for the start of the cookout, where they're standing on their porch.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I like how you can see all the individual panes of glass in the doors. You can see the floodlight. You can see all the grain in the wood.
All the grain in the wood. My God.
Yeah, the only issue I have with it is the inside of the house.
Okay.
Behind them.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't say I'm a big fan of just that, kind of black and blue background.
Yeah.
Inside the house. I mean, I would have liked to see a little bit, maybe see maybe see, some books or a side table or like a lamp or something like that. I mean, just because it's just weird. You think to yourself, okay, I'm supposed to be looking in a house. Why can't I see anything?
Yeah. I'm with you. They focus so much on little details like putting each nail in each wood plank on the deck and all of that, and all the grains in the wood and everything, and then fell a little short there because that's not where the focus was or whatever. But yeah, I'm totally with you. I will say that these backgrounds are pretty outstanding to me. I think it's going to be really hard to find any fault in this artwork, but again, I mean, critiques are always welcomed here. I had my critique on the grandmother's character design, and I definitely appreciate your take on the on that door there. How about the locations, Bob? We kind of go some different places here. Wherever they start off in the 25th century, and then end up in that frozen pond and everything, and then jump back in the time pod, and then they're in the year of our Lord 2024 at their house, and then they go skydiving or something outside, and then they're back in the house. So how'd you feel about the locations? Did they work in the story?
Yeah, I think the locations definitely work. I mean, you travel to a place 400 years from now, I mean, especially depending on where it is. I mean, who knows how much of humanity is going to be left in the 25th century? Yeah,
very, very true.
I mean, of course, wildlife is still going to be left, but I mean, as far as we know, in the 25th century, I mean, this is an exact representation of what it's going to look like, what Earth is going to look like.
Yeah, you're right. As far as we know, could be anything. Which is crazy. Scary to think about sometimes, but that's okay. Bob, of course, the last category we're going to get into is colors. And Francis Manipul likes to do all of his own coloring, so he did on this book as well.
So he's doing double duty.
Yep. He helped write the story. He was the artist, and he colored the book. So I don't know why he even hired Rob Lee to letter the book when he could have just done it himself. But maybe that would be a little too much for this 40-pager. How'd you feel about the colors?
I mean, there were definitely a few different shades of colors, a few different tones of colors. I mean, you get the snowy land of Earth, and I mean, it's there's some panels where it seems just slightly more washed out. You start out in the book where you get the brighter colors over the characters, or the brighter colored characters. You get present day Earth where it's got those earthy tones, and that those suburban colors, I guess you would say, of suburban life. So yeah, I think the colors are really good in this book.
Yeah, I agree. They really help tell the story. I think that it probably helped a lot that Francis was able to illustrate and color the book. So that definitely helps make it a little more consistent. But yeah, the colors work really, really well here. They definitely set a tone, and I like that tone quite a bit. I think that it worked very well. Bob, let's get into our overall thoughts, our opinion, our recommendation or not recommendation. If you'd like, I can go first, or you can feel free to go first.
Feel free to go ahead.
So I'm going to say this. I honestly did not like the title of this book. I did not like the cover of this book. I thought I was pretty turned off by this book initially. The only redeeming quality that it had was that it was a time travel story, and I like time travel. So yeah, I think that just seeing the characters on the cover, not that the cover was done bad. Let me say that. The cover is done well. I just, based on the cover and the title, I wasn't interested. But I was very pleasantly surprised whenever I read this book. I think that it's got a lot of substance in it. It's got a very interesting and unique story to tell. I think the cliffhanger is very, very interesting. I have no idea what the hell could be happening, and I like that. I like whenever I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it does. It does make you want to. I want to see what happens next.
Yeah, right. The only pitfalls here are like very insignificant, like the grandmother's character design that I didn't like a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I thought this was a really fantastic read. It was a lot of fun. It's 40 pages, but it read really quickly, really easy.
Yeah,
even though
it really did.
Jam-packed with freaking dialogue. So yeah, I would absolutely recommend this. I think that as far as I've read, any Ghost Machine stuff is definitely worth reading. It's very interesting takes and kind of different than what we're getting normally in comics. I'm going to be very interesting to know why the hell this book is titled Rocketfellers. I think it's a weird title. I don't think that it helps the book very much. But with that being said, yeah, definitely read this. Add it to your pool. It's very good. The title's strange. The grandmother looks weird. Other than that, I liked it a lot. Bob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's different in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really good. And, I mean, when we first picked this book, I was thinking to myself, okay, are we going to get a Challengers of the Unknown book?
Yeah.
That's literally what I thought. But, I mean, I'm like you. I mean, it had to do with time travel, which, time travel can be good. Time travel can be bad.
Mm-hmm.
As we both know. So, yeah, I mean, a book like this, it definitely depends on who's writing it, and I think Peter J. Tomasi was a good pick.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I mean, if you want to read a good time travel book, then I would pick this up. If you want to know the significance of the eyeball, I would pick this up.
Yeah, completely agreed. This is a fun read. I think that at the very least, you will have a fun time reading this comic, and it doesn't get much better than that. There's so much heavy crap happening all around us all the time in the real world. If you can just read something that's fun, then that is a win, in my opinion. So definitely check this out. Bob, I think that means we're going to take our final break before we come back and talk some comics that are in shops next week. So we'll see you guys in just a second. Hello and welcome back to the all new, all different number one comics podcast, issue number 97. Bob, it's time to talk some new comics that are in shops next week. Of course, every single week on Wednesday, new comic books come into stores, when they don't have a delay or any problems, whenever that is. Bob, of course, as you know, speaking of delays and problems, there's always a little thing that we need to add, just in case we talk about one of these books and then somebody gets their local shop and it's not there because it's disclaimer time. Welcome to disclaimer time. Gather around in your time pod for disclaimer time with Bob.
Oh man, you're very on the nose with some of these lyrics.
Yeah,
But like I always say this in every other week, these are some of the books that may or may not be coming out this week, and I don't know if all these books are going to come out because there's always a chance, even though Thanksgiving is Thursday, I mean, there could be, some distribution companies or some companies that are also closed on Wednesday. So again, all these books may or may not be coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And, these are just some of the books, if you want a more in-depth list on stuff that may or may not be coming out, you can always call your local comic shop. Like I always say, please and thank you go a long way. You can always do, Harry Potter Owl, John Wick Tube System, drive right through the store.
Yeah, maybe don't do them.
Yeah. Would you like to add anything?
No, I mean, it's always in any conventional means of reaching out to your local comic book shop owner and letting them know you want to know more about the books that are coming out. Maybe they have a special book that they really enjoyed this week. They got to read a preview edition of or something like that, and they want to recommend it to you. And if it feels like I've said this before, it's because Bob and I actually are a time travel podcast. I actually have said this before. We are actually not from the year 2024. This is being recorded in the year 2064, but you guys don't know that. So,
I mean, we read these comics a long time ago.
In any comic you've read, we've read years and years ago, so we already know if they're good or not.
I mean, I've seen comics that have been illustrated by John Romita V.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember some comics that came out from some people who aren't even born yet when you guys are hearing this. But, I feel bad for you because some really good comics come out in the future. But that's okay. You'll catch up. You'll get there. Bob, tell them what's out next week.
So, starting off the list from the House of Ideas Marvel Comics, we have Amazing Spider-Man number 62.
Number 62, Bob. I can't believe it. And that's a fun cover there. I really like the cover on that one. This one has a possible first appearance of a new scion of
Satorak,
thank you. The god who gives Juggernaut his powers. Yeah, I was going to add R's and things all in weird places that they don't belong, so I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, I think everybody knows how you pronounce by now if they have listened to this podcast, so I think people expect it.
You're right.
Yeah. Next up on the list, we have from the very redundant comic book company, Detective Comics, we have Black Canary, Best of the Best, number 1.
Yeah, man, we're getting a Black Canary solo series. That's fun. It's been a while. This is a 6-issue limited series that pits Black Canary against Lady Shiva to determine who is the better fighter. Bob, who do you think the better fighter is going to be?
Oh, are we talking about no powers?
I don't know, man. You got to include the powers. I mean, who's going to fight without their powers?
Then I'm going to give it to Black Canary and her sonic scream.
Oh, yeah, good one. I like it.
Staying with the company with only 3 characters, and one of them appears in this book, we have Detective Comics number 1091.
Bob, could this one have the second cameo appearance of Asima? Asima, thank you. On the final page?
I think so. Possibly. So are we getting another apocalypse situation? Is it going to be shadowy
Wolverine?
Is it going to be shadowy cameo on the last page?
Hey, it could be a Venom situation. Who knows? All kind of crazy stuff.
That is true. Going back to the House of Ideas Marvel Comics, we have the Incredible Hulk number 19.
Bob, Incredible Hulk back on this list. This is a milestone issue. How dare you say issue number 19 when this is milestone legacy numbering 800? That's right, Bob. For some odd reason, it's issue 800. Grab a copy for $8, I guess.
So, just on a side note, how do you feel about legacy numbering?
I hate it, Bob. I'm not gonna lie. Not a fan at all.
I'm not gonna lie. I hate it too. I mean, if you want to know what issue it is, just keep track of A, how many volumes there's been, B, how many comics in those volumes, and then add those up, and then you get the number.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I just don't see the point. I get that.
I don't either.
It probably helps the publisher and possibly comic shops quite a bit, because they're priced higher and they usually have a lot of variant covers and stuff like that. So, but I mean, God, it's so stupid.
But I hated that for the Avengers because it was like issue number 1, Legacy number 472 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
why?
Which issue is it?
Pick a lane and stay in it, damn it.
Next up from Detective Comics, going back to the Holy Trinity, we have Justice League Unlimited number 1.
Bob, a first cameo team appearance of Inferno and a prelude to Hush 2 is in here. So definitely pick that one up if you're a Hush head. Yeah.
Oh, I like that Hush head.
Right?
Instead of a deadhead, Hush head.
That's right. Yeah, this one looks cool. It looks fun. It's got all your classic characters on the cover. Yeah. Check it out.
Yeah. Going back to the House of Ideas, we have Venom War number 5.
Man, this one has the first appearance of
Ganrak.
Okay, thank you. Ganrak, the anti-Carnage. Wow. Scary stuff.
That is a very interesting. That is a very cosmic looking symbiote.
Right, I like it. And I will say this: the first appearance of Anti-Venom and all that stuff, actually a pretty pricey book. So I mean, you never know.
Next up from the House of Ideas, we have West Coast Avengers number 1.
Yeah, man, the 4th volume of West Coast Avengers. West Coast Avengers back with the first appearance of Blue Bolt, a super-powered convict. This new West Coast Avengers roster includes Iron Man, War Machine, Ultron, Spider-Woman, and Firestar. So be sure to pick that up if that piques your interest.
That's kind of a beefy lineup, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, man, I wouldn't want to mess with them. I mean, I'd hate to, have robbed a bank and then I open the door and then all of them are standing there.
Yeah, and have like a Gatling gun and a repulsor ray just staring me in the face.
Yeah, I'm like, well, this isn't gonna. Hey guys, I actually am turning around right now to bring this back to the bank, and
hey, I found some money. Let me just return it.
Yeah, right. I'm actually here just to give this back, issue an apology, and maybe give them my car keys. And hopefully I can just walk out with some nasty looks and that's it.
And then, I'm going to start my life over again, start giving to charity.
Yeah, exactly. Do you guys need anybody to volunteer to help you balance your books or anything? Because I'm available. Not a good situation.
And those are just some of the books that may or may not be coming out next week.
Well, Bob, speaking of books that may or may not come out next week, we've got 3 books here on the lovely and sponsored by wheelofnames.com. That's right. Head on over to www.wheelofnames.com for all of your wheel spinning needs. Bob, we've got West Coast Adventures, we've got Justice League Unlimited, and Hornsby and Halo #1, all on the wheel. I'm gonna, since I'm over here at wheelofnames.com, just looking at all the cool little pop-ups for Xfinity Black Friday sale and all kind of stuff like that, I'm gonna go ahead and click the wheel to spin it and see where it lands. Bob, it looks like next week we're headed back over to the House of Ideas. Thank you, Iron Man. We will be covering West Coast Avengers #1, and we're going to figure out what Blue Bolt is all about.
Yeah, well, obviously he starts as a convict, but I doubt he'll end as a superpowered convict, and I highly doubt that Ultron is going to stay a or try to be redeemed through the whole series.
I'm going to go ahead and just say, I hope that that's how the series starts out. I hope that Blue Bolt has robbed a bank and he opens the door. And the image on the cover of the book is what he sees when he opens the door. That's what I'm hoping for. We'll see what happens.
I feel like if that doesn't happen, they missed a really big opportunity.
Oh yeah, that's the cover shot, man. That's the money shot. Heck yeah, do it. Well, that about wraps up this issue of the all new, all different #1 comics podcast. Bob, you can find us on all your social media platforms. Head on over to X, go to TikTok, check out Instagram. We're on all those things. You can also use the hashtag #AllNewAllDifferentNation to be entered in our weekly giveaway where we like to give away a copy of the book that we talked about. Until next time, we'll see you guys next time. I don't know what I was going for there. Bye.